Welcome back. You're watching the India Development Debate with me, Tamanna Inamdar. The first day of the winter session of Parliament was marked by the repeal of the 3 farm laws, something that Prime Minister Modi had promised. And that was done without haste, but the manner in which it has done has come under attack from the opposition parties. The 3 farm laws were repealed without any discussion. It was a voice vote and the whole process took less than about 10 minutes. The 3 farm laws have been at the center of strife between the central government and farmer groups for over a year now. And the repeal was meant to assuage these farmer groups, but that doesn't seem to be happening. Farmer groups are digging in and now saying that MSP, the minimum support price that the government guarantees for procurement of 23 crops, should be legalized and be written into law. Is that really feasible? Before we talk about that, let's just take you through some of the back and forth that took place in Parliament and outside Parliament today between opposition parties and the central government.
जिस प्रकार से ये कानून रद्द किए गए बिना कोई डिस्कशन, पार्लियामेंट में इसके बारे में चर्चा नहीं होने दी, ये दिखाता है कि सरकार डिस्कशन से डरती है।
हम ये चाहते हैं कि उसके ऊपर बहस हो जाए, क्यों इतना देर हुआ, क्या हुआ, ये सारी चीजें आ जाएंगे। लखीमपुर खेरे का भी इंसिडेंट आ जाएगा, दूसरी चीजें भी आ जाएंगी, तो इसीलिए हम चाहते हैं फुल डिस्कशन उसके ऊपर।
We want a discussion. Discussion is important. But without discussion, they just pass bills, which is their way of doing things. They have done it.
We wanted to raise the issues of the farmers, still which are existing. That demands have not been resolved. That is the reason we wanted to have discussion, to point out. But Narendra Modi is afraid to hear the criticism and the discussion.
All right, Devinder Sharma, food and agricultural policy expert, and Siraj, Hussain, former agricultural secretary, are joining me now on the show. So what we're discussing essentially is this demand for legalization of MSP. Will it help or harm farmers and Indian agriculture? So broadly, the arguments against legalization of MSP is that it will increase inflation. The government will be then legally bound to procure each and every grain of these 23 crops which are right now given MSP, but not as a legal guarantee. The governments do it at their will, mostly paddy and wheat see more procurement. So will this lead to massive inflation? That's one of the big concerns over there. On the other hand is the question about guaranteeing farmers' incomes, which is becoming a crying need. So let's get all angles of the story. Devinder Sharma, let me come to you first. And let me just get your reaction on why you think farmer groups have not backed down. The key demand was repeal the farm laws, repeal it in Parliament. That's been done. So do you think there is a requirement for continued agitation?
Well, I think let's be very clear. Farmers have been protesting at the borders for 1 year now. I think to just think that they want to stretch it further, I think this is not being fair, because after all, there is an element of fatigue which we all must accept, and people want to go back. Nobody wants to sleep on the streets for as long as possible. So they are looking for a quick solution to their problem, and once the solution is provided or there is an assurance given, I'm sure the farmers would go back. Having said that, I think let's be very clear that in the beginning, when the demand was for repealing of the 3 laws, but after the movement shifted, or let's say after the time when the movement shifted from Punjab borders or Haryana borders to Delhi borders, that time there was a second demand of making MSP a legal right. And even during the negotiations that the government had, 11 negotiations, this was always on the agenda. So there were 2 demands there. One was the repeal of the laws, and second was to make MSP a legal right. So this has been their demand. And in any case, if they go back today without getting any assurance on the income aspect, then of course they go back to status status quo, which means the agrarian distress that prevails in this country would stretch further, and that is not, I think, is good for the country. And so what the farmers are demanding is that they be assured of a guaranteed price by way of a assured MSP is definitely a legitimate demand, and I think it calls for discussions, deliberations, and to see how we take it forward.
Mr. Siraj Hussain, is it of course, it's a legitimate demand because farmers are legitimately asking for something that they believe will help them. So a couple of things here. Can India afford it? One of the estimates being given is it will cost 17 lakh crores to procure all 23 crops. The other concern is of what it will do to food inflation. In your view, is it important to legalize MSP? Right now, it's sort of a political carrot, which gets dangled depending on, when the requirement is. Most of the procurement, as I mentioned, is only from 2 crops, not all 23 in the same amount. So do you think we need to now write this into law or let it continue the way it has?
Obviously, it is not going to continue in the way it has. You see, the thing is that the farmers have suffered from huge fluctuation in prices. So what they are wanting is basically an assurance that the government will make a policy which will ensure that the prices do not fluctuate as much and the prices are above MSP. That is what they want. And your listeners would do well to understand that it is already assured by law in case of sugarcane, where the private companies are mandated to pay a price, a fair price. It is called fair and remunerative price fixed by the government of India. So it is not that this demand is out of the blue. It has already been conceded for decades in case of sugarcane. Now, having said this, I must point out that it is not going to be easy for any government to come to a conclusion without a serious study of the issue, serious study of the options, etc. And that is why the government had announced that it will set up a committee of experts. So basically, I think, I may be wrong, but I think the farmers would be waiting for the setting up of a neutral, high-powered, empowered committee of experts having representation from all parts of India, from different stakeholders, which can go into various options of protecting farmers' income so that farming continues to be remunerative. Various countries support their farmers in different ways. Some do it by way of direct income support, some do it by price insurance. In various other countries, there are other kinds of subsidies, etc. So all these options have to be considered, and then only the government will be able to reach a decision.
That's fine, but let's talk about MSP as a vehicle for supporting farmer income, and that is what we have right now for the last several decades. Has MSP actually been affected? Devinder Sharma, let me come to you. Do you think that the best way forward is just to write into law and guarantee procurement of these 23 crops? Because that is what the demand is on the table. Let's legalize MSP. Or is it time to look at alternatives and other formula where you do support farmer incomes, but you don't boost inflation and other issues which might come from a guaranteed MSP?
Well, I think it is very interesting when we discuss this issue of whether we need to legalize or what could be the economic burden on the country when we go for an MSP, assured MSP for 23 crops. But let me make it very clear that when you say that whether the time has come, I think this is the perfect time now to start thinking how to provide farmers with a guaranteed income. In my understanding, there is no other mechanism better than government accepting, yes, we need to provide farmers with a guaranteed income. There can be different mechanism, of course. One mechanism is to grant farmers, outright this kind of a legal provision which says that MSP is a legal right. Second is, of course, there would be farmers who do not have anything to sell. They are too small or they are marginal in that marginal category. So they need to be provided with direct income support. That is second. The third, maybe we are thinking of whether we can go ahead with deficiency payments. That could be another option. But I think the more important thing is that we have to first accept and agree that yes, the farmers need a rightful income. They need to get a living income to survive. Why I'm saying is because market reforms everywhere in the world, including America, Canada, European Union, Australia, have failed to increase farmers' income. Now, as was said earlier, in America, 40% of the income that farmers have today is coming from subsidies. In Europe, 50% of the farm income that we see today is actually from subsidies and direct income support. Europe provides for $100 billion of subsidy every year.
There is no problem with subsidies. No, just a minute, sir. Let's narrow focus the discussion a little, because you and I have spoken about this also several times. So there is no question that some kind of a income support is required, and you're very right. The world over, governments subsidize their farmers, they support their farmers because of the very core function that they perform of providing food and nutrition, etc. They have to be protected. My question is about MSP specifically as a vehicle, because MSP is being debated hotly. Is it efficient? Is it doing its job in helping farmers, or is it only inflating prices and being used as a political carrot? That's the question I'm asking you.
You know, if you look at the way the price is worked out, the MSP is worked out by the Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices, you will see it operates under a set of parameters. And one of the parameters is that you have to keep inflation in control, or you have to keep a watch on inflation. The other one, of course, is the international prices and so on and so forth. Now, the point is the government fixes up this MSP, keeping already the inflation in control without realizing that the inflation otherwise is also impacting agriculture. You know, farmers are also hit by the inflation in other sections or other sectors, and that we don't realize. In fact, I have my understanding is that it is the inflation outside which is actually hitting farmers. You know, prices of everything has gone up, you know, except for food. Why are we keeping agriculture deliberately impoverished? After all, somebody is paying the cost of providing us with cheaper food year after year. Have we ever as a society thought about it, that how do we pull these people out of the poverty trap that they are in? That's the question nobody wants to ask. You know, when I see people saying, no, we can't maintain or we can't sustain the economic burden that the MSP would create, I fail to wonder. They never stood up and said that, you know, when farmers in such a deep crisis, let's do something to pull him up. And of course, the figures, you know it very well. You know, when the Economic Survey 2016 said that farmers in half the country, in 17 states of India, their income is only 20,000 rupees in a year. Nobody said, no, I didn't see any debate in the country discussing how do we pull out those farmers from that kind of a poverty trap. But the moment you say farmers need to get a guaranteed price, everyone is up in arms. Where will the money come from? I want to ask, where did the money come from? Seventh Pay Commission. When the Seventh Pay Commission, which benefits only 4 to 5% of the population.
But one second, Mr. Sharma, nobody is up in arms. Excuse me, one minute. Mr. Sharma, I don't think hyperbole is going to help farmers' cause or agricultural India or anything. Nobody is up in arms. We have to understand what the issues are, what the solutions are. At least that's what we attempt to do on this show. So we are asking today a simple question. Is MSP the answer? If you're saying that the plight of farmers is not a huge issue in this country, I think I would say with all due respect that it's incorrect. It's a highly political sensitive issue. No party worth its salt can ignore farmers. That's why you saw a very powerful government also having to retrace its steps. So everyone is aware of these issues, and we know we need to do something about it, and we must. My question is, MSP the right vehicle? Let me come back to you, Siraj Hussain, on this question. Do you think that the MSP formula as it is has helped or harmed farmers in all of these years?
See, it is very clear that the farmers who are able to sell their crop at MSP have a higher income than the farmers who are not able to sell at the MSP. So whether you take sugarcane farmers or the sugarcane farmers across India, because it is legally mandated that the private sugar mills, even private sugar mills and cooperatives and government sugar mills will pay the price fixed by the government, or you take wheat and paddy farmers in the states where procurement is quite effective. So in all these cases, the farmer's income is higher compared to those farmers who are not able to sell at the MSP. Actually, Tamanna, it is very well known that in states and regions where the procurement is not effective, the farmers are unfortunately forced to sell at 20-30% less. And that is why it has to be understood very clearly that this is what the farmers of Punjab and Haryana feared. They were not unaware of the recommendations of various committees which had been arguing that the government should reduce procurement, reduce PDS coverage, because they thought, and rightly so, that in that case, their income will go down by 20-30%. So the farmers have benefited. However, I must say, as an ex-chairman of Food Corporation of India, that procurement by the government is a very ineffective way, inefficient way, very expensive way of helping the farmers, because it is extremely difficult for the government to manage the stocks. And in case of wheat and rye, at least it is distributed under the public distribution system. For pulses and for all other commodities, cotton, NAFED had incurred a loss of 1,000 crores. So, procurement by the government of a very large quantity, in my view, would not really be a solution. But as I said earlier, all these issues have to be examined by a committee of neutral experts in a holistic manner, different options, and it is not necessary these options will be applicable uniformly across India.
That's the important point. That's the important point, that it might differ from state to state, might differ from crop to crop, but we need to start talking about these things. We need to come to a sort of a meeting ground where all of these issues can be thrashed out. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us on this very important discussion on whether MSP will actually be the right solution, and guaranteeing it as farmers want will be the right solution for them and for Indian agriculture.